Hello. Welcome to a very special episode for the channel. I have this week sat down with Philippa Strandberg-Long, who, if you don't know, is the head of acting at LAMDA, so one of the top drama schools that we actually have in the UK. She is the head of acting for that school. And I've crossed paths with Philippa in the past through other drama schools, and she was so kind to get in touch with me to say that she had just finished a big boatload of recalls for the acting program at LAMDA, and whether she could offer any insight to the people that watch my YouTube channel. To which I said, yes, I would love that. Thank you very much. So this is going to be all of the stuff that Philippa has seen firsthand at various drama schools, sitting on audition panels for them, including LAMDA, including this year, including last year. She has a wealth of knowledge. It is crazy. It's a lot of what I say already, and then a lot of extra stuff that just went completely blew my mind. So strap in, get a cup of tea, and watch the whole thing. Hello, thank you so much for being here and for agreeing to do this. This is going to be absolutely amazing, and kind of taking time out of your schedule to chat to me, to give all of this information to people who are hoping to audition for drama school or who have already, and for them to kind of get a kind of evaluation of what they've been up to this audition season. So thank you so much, first and foremost.
Absolutely, no problem at all.
Brilliant. So let's just kick it off with the fact that you've just come off the bat of recall auditions, but you've also been at so many different drama schools in the past and have sat on audition panels for all of those as well. When and kind of specifying in like the in-person auditions. So for anybody who's like never auditioned for drama schools or have in the past, but they don't know what's to come next time, when it comes to an in-person audition, what could they expect? How does it actually, what happens?
Yeah, so we here at LAMDA, we do a self-tape round, then we narrow it down to a Zoom round where you do some in-person redirection over Zoom, and then we see a certain percentage of that in recall day. What happens on the day, and this happens in most of the schools that I have sat on, is that they have a workshop in the morning on voice, which is about 50 minutes. So they do a workshop on voice where they have one voice tutor lead that, and they have another voice tutor sit and take notes.
Nice.
And then they have a movement workshop as well, similar setup to that. And that's about seeing how you interact with voice and movement. And then further along in the day, you have a singing workshop as well, where you also get marked from the tutors that are holding that. What we do here as well is that the acting panel actually sits in on these morning workshops as well. Yeah. So you can actually look back at how was this person in movement, how was this person in voice and singing, and take that into account when you see them. So you have a really full program in the morning, and you get to meet either our graduates who are here and run the auditions and can answer questions, and you also get to meet student support and some of our current students as well that you can have a conversation with. So it's a really nice little day to get to know the building and the people. In the afternoon, you go into the acting panel, and I know people get very nervous about this, and you can expect about 3 to 4 people on the panel. It's either course leader or head of actor training, myself. We have a voice representative, normally another acting tutor, and a student support person who will help with questions about accommodation, anything student related, really. After that, we will be looking at either one of your 2 speeches, possibly both of your speeches that you've prepared. And then here we do a duologue as well. So you pick from 6 different duologues, you pick one, and we have a graduate who sits in and reads in with the duologue to see how you interact with the duologue. What I do on my panel, I rework either a monologue or the duologue. Nice. After you've performed it. And then we'll have an interview and a chat, and we ask you some questions, and you get to ask the panel some questions. So that's kind of how the day works.
That's brilliant. And it's like a whole day. So what I often kind of say to people, when you've got those days with all of the workshops and stuff, it's basically like getting a day at drama school. You get to experience what it would be like to actually be doing classes, be in rehearsals and all of that kind of stuff, and use it as that instead of it being like a massive test.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it turns out to be in time in the room about half a day, I would
Yeah.
say, because you're waiting around for your audition and the classes aren't longer than 50 minutes. But yes, it is the intensity and that you can expect in the actual workshops, and you get to see the tutors, that the ethos of the work and how we work here, and that's the idea. Because what I think people don't understand, you're auditioning the drama school as well. You need to see the fit for you. Do you want to come here? Do you like the tutors? Do you like the way that, the workshops are run? Do you like how people are speaking to you on the panel? You have a choice, where you go and do your training. So it's you auditioning us as well.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, because when you go into those auditions, it feels like it's a test. It feels like the panel can be against you. And this is all stuff that you've made up in your own head. And when you're kind of confronted with people like that, it can be a huge obstacle to get over. Have you got any advice for people who are, going into those auditions, that what they should actually be focusing on?
Well, I think one thing that I think is really difficult to fathom is that we really, really want you to succeed. We see about 10% in recall stage, that's all, but it costs the school a lot to put on those days, and not just in money but in time for the staff that are on those panels for weeks on end. We really, really want the people in there to succeed. We're all rooting for you to be really good when you come in the door. I think if that helps you to calm down a little bit and to feel like everybody there wants you to be there and do your best, that's helpful. I think preparation works in different ways. I don't think running your lines 500 times before you go in is necessarily the type of preparation that you need to do. Maybe figure out what calms you, what calms your nerves, what you need to do before coming in the room to just feel a bit relaxed. And it's not necessarily to do with your speeches as such.
It's your kind of mindset and how you kind of turn up in the room.
Absolutely. And I would see it as a workshop, because it is a bit of training when you're in there. This is you get to go in and you get to do what you love, and if you don't love it, don't do it. You get to do acting in front of people, you get to do movement workshop, voice workshop, and see it a little bit as a workshop. It's easier said than done, but the more you can see it as a I get to act in front of people, I get to bring this text to life, then I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, that you've just got a massive studio and an audience and an opportunity to do the thing that you love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, completely. So when it comes to, the in-person rounds come very much at the end, and we've got self-tapes and Zooms and things like that lead up to it. Do you think that there are different expectations on those various stages? Are you looking for specific things, or is it just a case of the more and more you see them, the more you get to know them?
Well, the very first stage, you look for ability to bring a text to life, for understanding of the role, understanding of the text, being able to play an action, so actively trying to achieve something with what you're saying. Apart from that, there's not a huge amount more you can see in that first self-tape, because it's not interactive. So it is really about finding the arc and the journey in the speech, and finding a speech that does have that journey and have shows you off to a certain extent in who you are and what you can bring. So speech choice is important in that first stage, because there's no one coming back to you, if you see what I mean.
Completely. Yeah.
In the second, so when we go to Zoom, then you'll be looking at being reworked in your speech. So we'll be looking at flexibility, how you can adjust to direction in terms of the Zoom audition. And in the last one, it is even more so. I often do silly redirections just to see how you can throw away anything that you can, and just play with it, because it's really about, at that stage, it's about playfulness and bravery. And can you be brave and just really listen to the direction and throw caution to the wind and do what you've been asked, but not second guess yourself, not second guess the direction, and not be so stuck in what you prepared that you can't adjust to that. Then you obviously have somebody to do the duologue with, and that's even more. Can you actually feed into what they're doing and respond to what they're doing at the same time as having prepared something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it becomes much more about that interaction at that stage, and how you are in the room, how flexible you are, how brave you are, how playful you are. And for me, that's absolutely core to what I'm looking at.
Yeah, completely. And would they be things that you would say that that's something that you personally look for in a person that comes in the room, that you're kind of like, okay, I want to see some playfulness, I want to see flexibility? Like, is that from not just a tutor point of view, but a director point of view, just as a creative, you're like, that's the person that I kind of want to work with?
I will make a choice often based on their ability to take on redirection and to play with it. And it doesn't mean to shop with it or make silly choices, but actually listen to the direction, make specific and nuanced choices. And what you see when somebody can do that is that they know the material. If you don't know the material, you will struggle to do that. You will struggle to rework it. You will struggle to find a different angle to it very quickly, which we ask you to do it very quickly. But to be able to do that and still find new specificity in the text, to be able to just turn it on its head and do something new. I don't care if it goes into the real story. I don't care if it's logical. I've asked you to do something completely different. I just want to see how you take that on board. And often when I redirect, it's because I haven't seen a specific thing, so I crank it up in a different way.
Yeah, because we want to see that you've got a range of things that you're capable of doing. If you're only kind of, painting from a certain palette, then we're like, oh, well, there's so many other colors that you could possibly be painting from, and we're not seeing that. We want to be able to kind of see as much of what you're capable of in the room as possible.
Absolutely, and that's not to be confused with thinking that your speech has to show everything that you can possibly do, because then we're in for some crazy rides. But your speech has to be able to have a journey, bring you to life, work on an aspect of yourself, have specificity, have a journey, and then we can rework from there.
Completely.
What I think is really common is that you just rush past all the language, all the images. We get nervous and we just want to get it out of the way, or we want to end game to that very emotional part at the end. But actually, it's the journey that is the most important thing in those speeches.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so you spoke a bit about the LAMDA, but you've been on loads of different panels from different schools. Do you think that different schools are looking for different things, or is it like a general one size fits all?
It kind of changes a little bit as you go along, but what I would say is specificity with text, journey, drive to speak to somebody, and ability to adjust in the moment are things that everybody's kind of looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know any of the panels I've sat on where that hasn't been of interest.
Yeah.
And then it really does come down to what individual tutors want to do with it, or what they like specifically. But those are things that you universally look at.
Absolutely.
How well do you know this material? How playful are you? How open are you to the panel?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose different schools will have, a different kind of ethos or approach. They might be pulling from different practitioners and things like that. But can you speak the text truthfully? Can you have a journey? Can you interact with people? Kind of the standard practice, really.
It really is. It really is. And one thing I do find, and now I'm coming into my do's and don'ts, and I don't mean to come quickly, but simplicity is often what we're looking for. The more props or staging or, movement on the stage, it's just taking away from the essence of what you're trying to say or to communicate.
Yeah.
I haven't come across a place yet that thinks that that's good.
Yeah, the more props, the better.
Yeah.
No, that actually brings me on to actually saying, okay, are there, from your personal point of view, are there things that you just go, oh, for God's sake, why are you doing this, or why haven't you done this, or have you got any particular kind of pet hates or hang-ups that you've seen again and again, or from particular people or whatever?
Yes. So read the play, I would say, and I know this sounds very, very acting 101, but
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how many people have not read the play.
Mm.
So when you might be asked questions on that, won't understand or know where you're at, who you're talking to, etc. It's a really big red flag if somebody hasn't read the play that they're doing a speech from, because I don't understand where the choices are coming from.
Exactly, they don't have the context.
Yeah, there's no context. So read the play, make choices from what that means. Also, when you get a duologue, read that play, because we'll be looking at how you're interacting with the other person, but we'll also see what kind of choices you're making in that play, or in that context, or in that story. So read the plays. That's good. Some good advice there. Know what the characters are called. I know this is really basic, but you'd be surprised how often auditionees don't know what character they're playing or forget. So just know that. I struggle sometimes with very narrative speeches because they don't feel active. So speeches that are just going, and then I went to the shop, and then I saw this, and then somebody said this, and then it's not trying to affect in the same way that you're trying to affect somebody when you have a speech that's just completely directed to one other person.
Yeah.
And when we just go into kind of a one note, and we don't find the journey that you do in a very active speech that is trying to achieve something with the other person.
Yeah.
Speeches that are done to an audience, if you're going to have a speech that is done to an audience, I would come up with somebody else that you're doing that to, because it again becomes general and non-personal, and non-active, I would say.
Yeah, completely.
I do have some things that I wrote down actually that I want to have about the speeches. Don't try to shock the panel. Get this sometimes of people thinking that, oh, they'll remember me, but you don't want to be remembered for the wrong reasons. You don't need to shock. We're not looking for somebody to imprint something on our memories. Just happy with that you can do the text in a solid way.
And was that in terms of shocking with like the speech subject matter, or what happens within it, or the language that's used, or the actions that are played out during?
I think it could be all of that. It's more about the actions that are played out, the way that you say text, where you place yourself in the room. You might want to be creative and original. However, it's rarely what we're looking for in that moment, that your originality in delivering the text as such. And I don't want to say that you can't have a different slant on your text. Of course you can, but if it's about you just being creative and being memorable, it's often a great idea.
And it doesn't serve the text to do that. It serves yourself, which in turn does not serve the text, and it can be seen a mile away if you're doing it in order to just be remembered by an audition panel.
Absolutely. I think some speeches that are so well known that you cannot help but think of who does it, like Fleabag.
Yes.
It's one of those examples where, if you're not Phoebe Waller-Bridge, this is a really difficult one to pull off.
Yeah, because you know who you're comparing it to, and it did so well for very good reasons. So you can see why people would choose something like Fleabag, but at the same time, that's big shoes to fill.
It's big shoes to fill. The more well-known the speech is, the more likely it is that someone has done it perfectly as before. Like to be or not to be is a tricky one to pull off as well. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't come in and do a cracking version of that at all, but just be aware that the panel would have seen that one many, many times before. And it might be interesting to get something new. I quite like when there's auditionees have gone to kind of cobble together monologues from almost a duologue bit, and we're not really quite sure where it's from. I think that's quite creative, and it definitely becomes very active because you are speaking to somebody.
Absolutely, there is something that you are responding in accordance to. Yeah.
I think the really big thing is don't rush past these lovely words that for a reason. They are all there for a reason. The playwright wrote them. Use them to get through to whoever it is you're speaking to. If you were to use those words as your own, you wouldn't be rushing past them to that extent. So really owning the language, making us believe that those are your words. This is you speaking. And I think that's a bit of a misconception when someone thinks they have to play a character, but the character comes out of the language and out of the given circumstance. So as long as you can just bring yourself to the language and the given circumstance of that text, you are that character. You are bringing yourself to that. And that's very often what we have to go, can you just drop everything except, can you just come in as yourself and say these words and in this given circumstance? And it's quite amazing how it shifts in the space and the voice drops, and especially when it comes to classical, because we have an idea about how classical should sound. But if I would really have to give some advice, I would say, make us believe these are your words, make us believe how you speak. That's what it should be about. There's certain themes that can be problematic, like very emotional or traumatic monologues. Anything that you believe needs a huge emotional outburst is just putting extra pressure on yourself.
In a circumstance that you're already nervous,
already going, how am I going to reach this emotional outburst? And it doesn't add much to your ability. We can still see that you can handle text without having a strong emotional kind of cathartic end to it. And when you do have something big coming up, you seem to, the students or auditionees seem to end game, almost rush till you get to that point, or almost start it off with a flavor of what's to come, because you know that that's coming down the line, rather than enjoy that journey of the speech.
Completely. And kind of thinking that it's another thing that is going to make me memorable if I'm able to squeeze out some tears, or if I scream really loudly, if I get really angry, then I'll be really memorable. They're going to be very impressed with that.
Yes.
In fact, it's not vulnerable for the most part because it's manufactured, and it's not truthful because you're pushing it.
Exactly.
So
that, and don't worry about being redirected. I literally redirect everyone in this, and that is not because I think you've done anything wrong ever, really. That is literally to see, I might think you've done, but that's not why redirect. It is about to see how you take redirection, and about to see what other side can I get from you? Can you reach this other side without having to see another speech?
Yes.
So much you can do with speeches, and if you're open to completely change it, I can see 2 speeches in one, depending on if you're open enough to shift.
Yeah, completely.
So it's definitely not something to dread. If you're hearing a lot of banging, I've got a bunch of students jumping and doing some kind of skipping rope up the door.
You never know if something's like a real crisis in a drama school, or if it's just an exercise.
Exactly.
Because you said earlier that the purpose of redirection is to see how much you're able to shift, how playful you can be, how you can collaborate. And it's also, you said, we want to be able to see flip in a moment, the fact that they can't preempt what's to come, they just have to listen and go for it.
Yeah,
which is
And with what we do here with the duologues and the graduates that we have in, we have some wonderful graduates that come and do the speeches. And it's a shame when auditionees don't take advantage of really interacting with what's being given. And those who do, I mean, really come to life, because they don't just read it from a piece of paper, they will act with you and they will, you know, help you. And sometimes I end up directing both the graduate and to say, could you give this, see how this person responds? And yeah, it's a real, it's acting is collaboration, acting is reacting. If you're not open to do that with somebody who's there giving everything to you, yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at.
Yeah, completely. It's one of the top things. You're just like, if you were closed off and if you're only sticking to the one way that you think is right, you know, it limits you in a massive way as an actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to choosing your speeches, because we know that it is important to have a good speech that's suited to you for your self-tapes, like you said, but how do you kind of, what would make a speech suited to a person? What should they be looking for?
I would go closer to my own age, first of all. It doesn't mean that you can't do a speech for somebody much older, but often it's that kind of experience that comes with that age. You just see things from a different perspective. That doesn't, you don't want anything else working against you in that room, is what I'm saying. I don't mean that you can't pull that off, but can you pull it off just as well as you could a speech that is closer to your experience or your age?
Yeah,
possibly not. And then you're giving me more reasons to find something that isn't working, and that's just, yeah, that's just putting more pressure on yourself. Similarly with things like experiences, often we will have to, in our imagination, have to go somewhere where put ourselves in the shoes of the character. But if those shoes are so far away, you'd have to, really research a different era to be able to take this on board. We're not expecting that in an audition, because that's why you go to drama school.
Yeah.
So I would again go, is this something that I can relate to? Is this something that, even if it hasn't happened to me, when I read this text, does something come alive inside me? Do I understand what this would feel like? Rather than it being a struggle and only scratching the surface of what that is about. You're just making it more difficult for yourself, really.
Completely.
I wouldn't go over 2 minutes either. It's never going to go in your favor. No. Carrying on more and more and more. 2 minutes is all the panel needs to have seen the journey. And if you can't get there in 2 minutes, it kind of starts to go a little bit against you, because you're just wondering where this is going. So yeah, I wouldn't go past the 2 minutes. What else would I say about the speech choices? Yeah, like I said, something very traumatic or very graphic might not be always the best thing, because you never know what triggers who in the room nowadays either. So that doesn't mean that you can't tackle difficult subjects. Most plays are about difficult subjects and high stakes, but very graphic language perhaps is not that advisable.
Yeah. I get some people that come to me and they're like, okay, I'm doing this speech. I've done it before for drama school auditions. I've done it 2 years in a row. A college tutor gave it to me and they didn't even kind of choose it themselves. And they're really not connected to it. It's like they don't really care that much about it. In terms of, do you think that to actually have a speech that you feel passionate about, that you agree with, that you kind of is something that you are interested in and feel alive, could that make a difference?
Absolutely. That's like, yeah, it coming from inside you rather than it being plastered on top of you. And I would say the same thing with being directed by someone else as well. It's one thing being coached on what the different aspects of speaking to people and playing an action, playing an objective. It's another thing being directed in the space. If you don't own those movements, this isn't the time to have a whole directed staging, I would say. You can tell straight away when somebody has been directed into a certain way or certain performance, and it feels like a performance. It doesn't feel like this is a person here talking to me. And we're not looking for much more than just believing that it's you speaking, to be honest. And sometimes when I redirect the auditionees to just drop everything and say it as if this was happening to them, and then their response is, oh, that felt so easy. Well, it shouldn't feel difficult. It shouldn't feel labored or labor intensive, really. Come kind of natural. I mean, by a road. If it feels really difficult, maybe look for another speech, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, because there's only so much that we can bring on stage with us, and there's only so many plates that we can spin all at once. And if you're trying to manifest somebody else's somebody else's direction on what you should do with your voice and where you should place your hands on this particular line, it's just extra stuff that will make it feel labored and difficult, as opposed to the simplicity that you were talking about earlier.
What I always ask is, what do you want? Who are you talking to? What do you want from them? Not what do you want in life? What do you want from them by saying the speech? And it could be anything from, I want them to hug me. I want them, to forgive me. I want them to, tell me that I'm wrong. I want them to tell me I'm right. I want them to cry. I want them to laugh. I don't care what it is, but you try to achieve something from this other person that you're talking to. And that brings me on. We always offer you to speak to somebody in your monologue, and you'd be surprised how many people do not take you up on that offer.
What, speak to a wall?
Would rather speak to a wall. And I think that it makes such a difference to speak to somebody, whether you practice with a wall or not. Take people up on the offer to speak to someone. It becomes more human straight away.
Completely.
So
even just in your preparation stages, try rehearse with other people, actually speak to another person, so that you're not jumping over that hurdle when you're in a recall stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is completely crazy how different it is when you speak to somebody. It's a completely different level. Even if you feel like you're bringing the same thing, you don't. There is something that happens when you connect with another human being. And it's not the panel. We use our graduates, so it's not the panels. You don't have to sit and watch people, write, but you are speaking to another person. And
you get to connect with them and actually work to affect them. So you're not kind of creating the idea of that wall as a person. Like, use a person, a real person.
Use a person, exactly.
Always, yes, completely. Now, you mentioned that as part of the final round stages, there's like an interview portion. So that's a question that I get a lot from people. They're like, there's going to be an interview. I've done like job interviews before, but I've never done an interview and an audition. Are they different? What do they do? I don't want to come across like an idiot. What are they going to ask me? So first and foremost, what is the function of having a little interview in a recall stage?
It is to get to know you, who you are. We're interested in the individual. We're always interested in who is coming into the school. It also helps you look at the build-up of the year group as well. So we're looking for your personality. So we don't want polished, thought out answers. We want to see a bit about you. And the other thing I'm trying to establish is this school right for you? Is our training right for you? And are you ready to train? Because something we don't talk enough about is that it's difficult to train as an actor. It's really, really hard work. It's great and joyful and wonderful, but it's hard work. It's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of stamina. It's a lot of hours. And we have a very short time in an interview to try to establish that. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that kind of commitment? And we try to ask lots of different types of questions that all goes towards the same thing, but it isn't just going to be, are you ready for this? But it might be looking at your personal statement. I always read personal statements before every recall. I read it and make little notes on it. So don't think that your personal statement just goes in the bin and no one looks at it. I look at it in detail. And sometimes it's just a conversation opener. This is what you did this, talk to me about this. Something else you've written that I need to question you on this belief or drama school, or why you say this about drama school. Or it could be you've had loads of experience. What do you think drama school can give you at this point? So it's to see what the expectation is as well.
Completely.
Because it isn't for everybody, and not everybody needs to go either. I think that's a really important thing to understand.
Yeah.
It's you have to think about what is it that you think you need. The other thing I like to try to ascertain is how reflective or understanding of the self is the candidate or the auditionee. Do you know what you have to work on? Sometimes you might do something in an audition that, you know, might not be fantastic, but if you tell me in the interview, this is what I need to work on, that's a great insight. That's why you come to drama school. Yeah, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to understand where your challenges lie, and what you think might be challenging for you in terms of drama school. And that's not to say, please don't say that nothing is going to be challenging for you. I'd much rather somebody was truthful and honest about what they might see as a challenge, because then I understand that they've thought about this and they've researched what it entails.
Yeah.
So we have just that little bit of time to get to know this student a little bit, get to know their understanding of us, the training, and what it will take from them. And then, you know, we'll ask questions like, what do you like? What makes you happy? It's depending on what we've seen in the speeches and the duologue, that will pave the way for whatever questions we have to ask.
Yeah.
If the voice department has specific questions about vocals, they'll ask them then. But otherwise, it's mainly questions about you and what your expectations are.
I love the fact that you brought up the idea of what do you like, because so many people think, oh no, I have to 100% focus purely on acting and I can't have any other interests outside of it, when in fact being an actor is all about having loads of different experiences so that you can bring a character to life. So if you do have hobbies and interests and experiences, and you know, it doesn't have to be my life is acting.
Absolutely not. And what I love reading in personal statements is, oh, I'm really into psychology, or I love maths, and you know, if I wasn't an actor, I'd be a mathematician. I don't know. I haven't read that many of those, but I'm interested in what else you like. I understand that you like acting because you're here auditioning, but what else do you bring? Don't be afraid to answer that. And we might ask you a question like, if you couldn't be an actor as of tomorrow, what would you? And that is not to think that, I don't want anyone to think, oh, if I answer that, they don't think I'm committed to this industry. No, but I understand that you have other interests, that you know, what else is there around you? Because like you say, an actor has to play characters from all kinds of walks of lives. What are your interests? What do you like outside of picking up a text and being somebody else, or yourself to a text? There's so much else that is going on with the past.
Yeah, because if your only lived experiences of acting, then the only thing that you're going to be able to play as an actor is an actor.
Yes.
Which there aren't that many. There are some, but there aren't that many.
Yes. In the interview stage, there's also a part where the auditionees get to ask the panel questions as well. And here I would give some advice. Keep the questions about the school, keep the questions about the course, keep the questions about, you know, maybe graduate outcomes or the students here. I would advise not to go into personal questions about the panel. They're not being interviewed.
Yeah.
You're surprised how often that happens.
Oh gosh.
About what do you think about this? Or that this isn't the time, and it's quite uncomfortable for the panel to have to answer questions about their personal opinions on things that isn't about the school or the course. So I would really, this is not this is not to be where you are creative. This is where you actually, where you have pressing questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
What it's like to be at the drama school, or what it's like to go on that course, or any other, pressing questions that you might have.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to think up something either. It's not a trick question. It is just if you have any questions that you would like to ask the panel there and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also sounds like very basic advice, but good manner will take you a long way. Yeah, just sitting up on your chair and just speaking attentively and in a nice manner, like in any kind of interview, is also probably preferable than the
then anything's going to work against you. It's not about being necessarily on your best behavior, but it's about, being conscientious and collaborative.
Yeah, absolutely. But just really keep it about the course, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Wow, oh gosh, I don't know what I would do if I was sat on an audition, because I've not had that experience of getting personal or kind of prying questions on an audition panel. It's crazy. So the audition process, or the audition season for this year, has basically come to an end, or it's drawing to a close now. And applications aren't going to be open for the next set until kind of September, October time. So for anybody that is planning on auditioning for drama school in the next year, or like has never done it before, or is going to be trying again, having not got the results they wanted this year, what would be your advice for what they should be doing with their time from kind of now until when they apply?
Yeah, I would ask for feedback, because you can ask for feedback, and we do put down feedback, so that anybody who asks for it can have that feedback. I would see that as constructive, rather than beat yourself up with that. And I would start with a new speech. I wouldn't try to redo this speech. It's going to sit in your body emotionally in a different way if you have not had the best result with that. So start afresh. But before I even start to look at speeches, read some plays, watch some TV shows, look at where you can see actors do the things that maybe you've had feedback about. What is it that makes this actor watchable? What am I doing that might not be those qualities? You can look at TV series and see that, and you can go to see plays and see that. You can read plays as well to get a greater understanding of many different characters and stories that are out there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't just rush into, I need a new speech tomorrow to work on for 6 months before I audition. If you have a technique and you get the lines down, you don't need 6 months to prepare for a speech. You just need to find the speech that you connect to, and you start afresh, and you see if you can really hone those bits of feedback that you've had. If you haven't got any feedback, then I think, again, starting afresh, going back to basics. Who am I talking to? What do I want? Does it matter? I don't want to watch something that doesn't matter to you. If it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Does it matter in this moment? Can I understand this? Can I bring myself to it in some way? Am I putting on something? Am I putting on a voice? Am I putting on a tension that I don't need? Does this character walk like? You might not be walking in the space, but you want to know that. And just experiment a little bit and try lots of different things with it. Don't be afraid to experiment with it, because they'll probably do that in the panel anyway. So don't be so set in what you're doing with it. The other thing I think I really would like to advocate for is take a break.
Yes.
Take a break. If you've been auditioning, it's a long slog with a different drama school. It's costly as well. Okay, you don't, like I said, I've just come off auditions last week, our last ones. It doesn't mean that you're going to get in to be the first one in the room. You've got time. Yeah. So take the summer and just don't think about it. try not to anyway. Just take
Yeah.
a little bit away from it, get a breather, and then start again.
Yeah, because like you said, you know, you use the interview stage to see if people are ready for training, and sometimes people aren't, and sometimes we kind of go, maybe you need a little bit more life experience, maybe you need a year to kind of just be exposed to the world. In those kinds of things, what do you think people should be kind of doing during that kind of break time? What would you recommend?
Do other things than acting.
Yes.
Live your life. Maybe go and get another job. I don't know. I'm not going to be sitting here prescribing what people do, but it's not uncommon that we think this person isn't quite ready, but actually needs to live a little life. We take on quite a few actors that are a few years out of A levels, for example. That's not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
So kind of cherish that you know a little bit who you are. And not just in terms of what you love in terms of acting, but who you are, what you like, what you've been doing. Read books, watch films, see friends. I don't know, but just don't be disappointed if someone says you know you're just not quite ready yet. It doesn't mean that you will never be ready. It means for this year you didn't feel like you were quite ready yet.
Yeah.
And
suppose, you know, to be an actor, it's that idea of having the exposure to lived experience, so being able to kind of go out and have experience and not be so focused on the end goal. I need to get into drama school, and that just being, that's all I'm going to focus on. There's a huge world.
And take classes. There's classes out there, different types of practices that you can try out. Everything you do has to be focused on that audition.
Yeah,
that's really important. Yeah, and I think it's not I never look at somebody who's been auditioning for a few years as any different to somebody who comes in the room.
Point, yeah.
You know, I will look at you fresh every time, because you know things happen in life and you're not ready, or you know the panel didn't see who you were.
Yeah,
it really doesn't matter. What I would say is, don't just go on autopilot and audition because that was what you decided at some stage in your life, but really examine each time, is this what I still want? And is this the school that I still want to do this at? Because what is not great is to bring in the sadness or the burden that you can feel having auditioned several years, or the rejection. If you bring that into the space, that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
With anything really. It's not going to help you with your speech or your interview. And sometimes there is a lot of that coming in the space, and I would suggest your preparation then has to be about, you know, seeing if we can shift that, seeing if we can shift that beforehand. And if it is really painful, just have a conversation with yourself if it's really still what you want to do.
Yeah, knowing the difference between feeling nerves and feeling dread.
Yes.
You know.
And or just doing it because this is what I've been doing for the last few years. And yeah, and I think I'm being quite honest about that. There is huge competition for very few places. It really is. And that's one thing I do want to speak about, is the wait list. So, you know, we offer 30 spaces. There's a lot of talented auditionees coming through the door. A waitlist place still means that you are good enough for the school. You're not put on the waitlist unless we think you are good enough. Wow. But in the beginning, somebody pipped you to it. Okay. I see it again and again when somebody has been on the waitlist and they let it affect their whole start to the drama school journey. Nobody knows you've been on the waitlist except admissions. Nobody knows that you weren't first choice. And I feel a lot of actors bring that in to the space when they come and to their work. And that's something I would really like to reiterate, waitlist means you are good enough to be on the course. You just haven't been fully successful at the first offer.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's good, because it's not something that's kind of discussed very often when people are placed on the wait list, that it's seen as kind of secondary or not as good.
Yeah. And it might have been something small that made that shift, and it could be a personal opinion or whatever, but it still means that you're good enough. And more often than not, we will go to the wait list for something. For someone. So yeah, don't be disheartened by having, especially if you get a place, that place is worth just as much as somebody who wasn't on the wait list.
Yeah, of course. Nice. Brill. So is there any kind of pieces of advice or piece of advice that you think is so incredibly key that if it was just the one takeaway that people took, what would it be? Like, what is the kind of thing that you want people to leave this with?
Oh my, I feel like I've said everything. Don't be afraid to fully take on the redirection. Because so often I see someone dip their toe into it, but not actually go there.
Yeah.
It just go there. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. Just be brave. Be brave. And be brave and talk to somebody in your speech. Make sure that you are trying to achieve something with your speech.
Yeah.
I think those are my main takeaways. In terms of the movement and voice workshop, really enjoy it. Try to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy that, you don't want to come to drama school. There's a lot,
because we do a lot of that.
a lot of that. Enjoy being in the space, and try to have fun. Because if we don't like it, we shouldn't be doing it. There is fun to be had in the space. We try to make the space. A panel is always intimidating, but we try to be as open and friendly, as possible to foster that kind of ease in the space.
Yeah, completely. Connecting, committing.
Play.
Yeah, it's why it's called a play. It's called a play for a reason. Completely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. This has been incredibly insightful and undoubtedly incredibly useful for everybody that's going to watch. So thank you so much for giving up your time to do this.
Absolute pleasure. Hopefully somebody can take some advice from it.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There we go. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure that you click like and that you subscribe to the channel. If you have any other questions, anything that you were unsure about that was being discussed, make sure that you pop them in the comments below and send this to as many people as you know who are applying, auditioning for drama schools, auditioning next year, going out into the industry. There are so many things that were discussed in this video that are transferable to every kind of sector of the industry. So make sure that you pass it around and get it in front of as many people as you possibly can. But until next time, thank you so much. Bye.